Good morning, afternoon, evening, night, whatever time it is, wherever you're listening to this. Hope you're all doing well. If you're not, I hope you are soon enough. My name's Ant/Wedgedock, and I'm here to talk Doctor Who again once more on this lovely Geek Syndicate evening. It's evening when we're recording, so I'm allowed to say that. We're running a bit behind, if I'm honest, and it's partly my life's fault. So this time we're going to be talking 2 episodes. We're going to talk Dot and Bubble and then Rogue in quick succession. I'm joined as ever by the indefatigable Mr. Barry Nugent. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I don't think I've ever been referred to as indefatigable before. Probably because I can't say the word.
I was going to say, I don't even know if I said it right, if I'm honest. I'm trying to think of new words to introduce you, and I'm running low.
You could just stick with Barry.
Nah, don't want like that, dude.
Okay, cool.
Got to big you up.
Cool, I'll take that.
So how's things?
Yeah, all good, as they say.
Excellent. Well, let's get into it, because we have, as I said, we've got 2 episodes to get through.
Yes.
Just stuff happened last week, so we missed out a little bit. So let's get into Dot and Bubble first, episode 5 of series 1/15 or whatever we're on these days. I don't know.
Can I just say, before we go into Dot and Bubble, I just want to say, when you've just said that we didn't record, I was the reason we didn't record last week.
Because it was both of us, because I was one day and you were the other day. Yeah. Because on one day I had my brain was not very good because of stuff that was happening at work, and then the next day it was you. So
yeah, well, I suppose I wanted to preface that, so when we get into Dot and Bubble, I can bring that into some of my comments on this episode.
Okay, no, that's fair. Yeah, I see where you're going with that now. Fair enough. Okay. So Dot and Bubble, boom. The world of Fine Time seems happy and harmonious, but an awful terror is preying on the citizens. Can the Doctor and Ruby make them see the truth before it's too late? So yes, this is Russell T Davies, although the idea for this episode was Stephen Moffat. But yeah, so Russell T Davies, directed by Dylan Holmes Williams, who also directed 73 Yards. And this was basically, those 2 episodes of the first filming block, which is why they're a bit Doctor Light, because Ncuti was filming Sex Education at the time. And there we are. And his first scene was the end of this episode, was the actual first recording. So we'll get to that a little bit later. Yeah, so thoughts? Or do you want me to do thoughts first for this one?
I'll let you do your thoughts. All right. I'm interested to see what you think of this.
Yeah, so the first thing about this was it was very much more of a traditional Doctor Who than we've had for a little bit, where it's your base under siege sort of episode. It's very, I could kind of see Stephen Moffat's influence when I watched the Doctor Who Uncovered thing, and Russell T Davies was like talking about it being a Stephen Moffat idea. I was like, yeah, I can see that, because it's very much his vein of take something that's now and make it twisted. So the whole getting trapped in your bubble of friends on social media, I thought was a good sort of satire. I don't really get the idea of the planet. If I'm honest, it's kind of like, oh yeah, it's like Love Island, except for it's not, because everyone's just in their bubble constantly. Oh, we work for 2 hours and then we party the rest of the time. No, you don't. You're in your bubble. But other than that, I mean, overall, I thought it was quite a good sort of traditional people in trouble, Doctor trying to save them, but having to do it from a distance sort of episode. We'll get into the other undertones a bit later, I think. But that was kind of my overall takeaways of the episode as a whole thing, as a general story. I kind of feel like in some ways this is a 2-part thing, because you've got the general episode and then you've got like the final sort of 15 minutes or however long it was, and they feel almost separate in my head. So kind of this summary that I'm doing is more of that first bit, and I feel like we'll hit the last sort of 10-15 minutes later. So yeah, sort of that bit on its own, I felt was that it's a traditional Doctor Who episode, and it's nice to see that without too much of the supernatural, without too much of the weird and wonderful, shall we say. I thought Kylie Cook, who was the main character in it, really, because the Doctor and Ruby, neither of them were in this very much, did a fantastic job of being not too irritating while still being irritating and being that kind of like very vain kind of influencer type person. And then the later stuff we'll get onto in a bit. But yeah, I mean that's kind of what I felt the main portion of the episode.
Yeah. So I think it's really difficult to talk about this without talking about the last 15 minutes, because I think it informs the whole episode in a lot of ways. But overall, I felt till we got to the last 15 minutes, I thought it was an okay episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, run of the
it didn't blow me away or anything like that. I also felt it was weird that they had to. I mean, I get the reasoning that they had to, because he was doing sex education, so they had to find a way to sort of work around that. So I get that. I just find it odd that they decided to air 2 Dr. Light episodes back to back.
Yeah, I've got a note about that. That felt weird. And again, I feel like we talked about this a little bit with episode 2. I think the order of broadcast changed because of Eurovision. And I think like the Eurovision episode was meant to be a little bit later in the season. Maybe this was meant to be episode 2 or something, because of some of the dialogue in episode 2 where Ruby's like, "But you never run," but actually up to that point she's only seen him run. I just think they went, "Oh, we've got this musical episode and we've got Eurovision, let's reorder things." So I think things got shuffled around. If I'm honest, I think this should have been it should have been a couple of episodes apart from 73 Yards either way. Is my gut. I don't know how true that is, but that's what it feels like to me.
As it says, I thought it was okay, and it was only really the last sort of 15 minutes of it or 10 minutes of it or whatever where it took on a completely different tone, I guess, a much darker tone, not just because of what happened to Doctor at the end, but also what Lindy did.
Yeah, and that's the, and again, it's why I thought her performance was so good. We're gonna have to talk about it anyway. Let's just get into it while we're talking about other stuff, I guess. I was trying to segment things, but sod it. Her performance, and when you see that turn where initially she just betrays her essentially love interest in it. That kicks in, and that, to be fair, that was another niggle I had from it, because like you say, it's a run-of-the-mill kind of episode. You got these monsters, but then you're saying there's no point to the monsters because actually the machines could just kill you anyway. So why did they create the monsters? Do you know what I mean? It's like they're just there to make a TV episode.
Because we need to have monsters.
Because we need to have a monster, yeah. And actually, the episode would have worked just as well if people had just been disappearing, it was the dots taking them out. But just the fact that when she turns, it's like such a little bit, because you do see her as this ditzy kind of like social media person who's just reveling in their views and stuff, like, which was kind of the point of the episode. But you get to this point and then it's like, oh yeah, no, actually, and she just betrays this guy who she's clearly had that online kind of crush on for however long, kind of thing. And it's like, no, she's saving herself. And then it takes that further darker turn where you suddenly everything connects, and it's like the little hints that were there through the episode, like the fact that everyone on the planet, or everyone in her bubble anyway, were Caucasian, and the fact that she immediately dismissed the Doctor when he turned up to warn her about the trouble, but then when Ruby turned up, a blonde Caucasian, is like she started listening to her. There were those kind of little hints, but that kind of like that turn at the end where it's like, oh, I can't go with you, and that level of disgust that's shown, that was some good acting. And it was a good it was a good performance overall because it felt a little bit kind of like damn sort of thing, like, you know, from the way she'd been before, like that kind of just being generally irritating and ditzy. And I think that's my main takeaway of this episode is the performances were really good. They were superb. And I've said that through most of these episodes, actually. I think this has been a good run acting wise. And
I think do you know what? Before I say what I've got to say, because I got some shit to say, I'm just going to go and top up my whiskey.
That's a fair comment.
Are we back in 20 seconds?
No worries.
Well, probably be longer.
I might go and grab another can actually as well while you can.
Hello. So here's the thing. So I see a lot of people kind of like praising Russell T and like, you know, doing this sort of an episode and the Doctor coming face to racism and having to deal with stuff and whatever. And, you know, what's interesting is I've seen online, because I've looked online about it and stuff, and there's actually quite a lot of people who completely missed the cues and didn't even think it was about. They thought it was about class.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And so there's a part of me that one thinks I almost wish they'd doubled down and made it like 100% clear what the score was at the end.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I get I get what he was trying to do, but you know, and if you know, you know, and I knew pretty much 5 minutes in. You know,
yeah. To be fair, Amy was the same. Like literally, she was like, "Why is there no diversity?" It's basically that's not quite how she worded it, but that was the thing. I was like, "Oh yeah, you're not wrong," and I just said, "I'm sure it'll be addressed," sort of thing. Because I didn't pick up on it. I mean, my demographic, you know what I mean?
And let's be honest, and you know, and let's be honest, you know, you've now got a Black Doctor, so I kind of assumed we'd have an episode where they would deal with it in sort of speech marks, but I'm still trying to like, which is part of the reason why we didn't record last week, because I was angry and I didn't quite know why I was angry about it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to just come on and start ranting and raging and not necessarily knowing why I was ranting and raging.
Yeah.
But I think part of it is listening to there's an interview of Russell T and he's just, I don't know, he's quite smug about it. And, you know, there's a bit where he kind of says, you know, well, you know, people are going to be watching it and all of a sudden they're going to, they're going to get to the end and they're going to realize that actually it's about racism and whatever. And then they're going to be like, how didn't they notice it? And, that'll give them something to think about and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, but mate, you were the same person that wrote a script which had David Tennant saying to Martha, when Martha quite rightly said to him, we're going to be going to some dodgy part of history.
Yeah, we're in Shakespearean times.
How's it going to work out for me is like, you know, a black woman and him going, don't worry about it. Just act, I think he literally says something like, just act like you belong there.
Act like that's you own the place or whatever. Yeah.
So I don't really feel like you can be quite so like, you know,
self-righteous about it.
Or I would have almost rather him said like, I would have rather him kind of called that episode out and go, yeah, actually, I wrote some of that stuff and actually, I didn't really get it. Now I kind of do, and this is almost like me trying to deal with it a bit better.
Yeah, it's like you say, it's that smugness. But and this isn't a defense of Russell T because I'm not his biggest fan anyway. But he always seems smug. I think even when he's not, but that felt particularly smug.
Yeah, and also like we had the scene, and you know, it's as a black guy, it's a horrible scene to watch. People could talk about how well acted it was, but and some people go, oh no, it's horrible, and I can't believe let's deal with it. And I was saying to some people, well, that's a Tuesday for me. All those sort of microaggressions I get on a daily, I'm kind of dealing with some of that stuff in my job currently. that's for most
That's life.
black people. It's like, and I remember having a conversation with someone about it all and kind of explaining some of the different things that I might have to deal with of a day and things like that. And they were like, and it was a white person. They were getting, she was getting really angry about it and stuff. It was like, well, I don't understand. How can you deal with, how do you do with it? I couldn't deal with it. I'm like, but that's my life. I don't have a choice. Do you know what I mean? That's life. I was saying
it's
to him,
deal with it or burn, basically. Isn't it?
Yeah, and it was one of the times I remember having to explain to someone why I always get a receipt when I go into a shop, because they don't.
Yeah.
And they were like, why are you getting a receipt? And I'm like,
because you have to.
Because I have to, because if I don't, odds are, which is what happened. It happened at my local Marks and Spencer's twice. I've walked out of Marks and Spencer's.
But that one, like, just down by you where you go.
Yeah.
Nearly every day. Well, at least once a week.
Oh, yeah. I walked down the road. I was halfway down the road, and then security guy followed me and then asked me to come back to the shop. He said, can I see you in your bag? And I said, no. I said, I'll come back to the shop. But I said, you can't see my bag because I haven't done anything. I had to go back to the shop, I had to open up my bag and show them there's nothing in it. And I said, I'll come in here every single day. And I said, that is my life. It's like, I have to have proof of things. It's not as in America, they do that so they don't get shot. But, it's a similar sort of principle. So microaggressions is nothing new to me. And in one way, yes, they did a good job of it. But in another way, it isn't that hard to kind of recreate that stuff. Do you know what I mean? And the setup was so obvious anyway, so it was quite good from that perspective. But it was almost, it sounds silly, but they were almost like too evil. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. And
it was almost the sort of, almost like if you watch it with your kids, to sort of almost go, don't worry, kids, not everyone's that evil and racist. It's just that planet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or that version of Earth, which is the future. And I think that's the other thing that I kind of, one of the things I loved when I was growing up was Star Trek. And one of the things I loved about
how optimistic it was.
Yeah, it was optimistic, but also that it wasn't just the fact you had Uhura on the bridge who was black, but it was the fact you had Chekhov and you had Sulu. And do you know what I mean? But as a kid, as a young black kid, I loved that idea that in the future, like, people were going to get on.
Yeah.
I could get on with other people and I could do all these incredible things and travel to other planets. As a kid, that really appealed to me. So seeing this episode or two where basically say, well, in the future, everyone's still going to be racist, it was kind of, again, get when I do it, but I was just a bit browbeaten by the end of it. As a personal, for me, it was like, and this was almost kind of like, I knew this was going to come with having a black daughter. But also what really, the thing that really angered me, this is what really angered me, is that you did this episode and everyone is going on about how great this episode is and how brave it was and all this sort of stuff. And I'm not taking away, I think Shooty's performance in those last 10 minutes was phenomenal. Yeah, not taking that away. And also, he was a better doctor than me because I'd have let those fuckers burn. But that's just
not being funny. I would have.
Right, so that literally showed that's the doctor.
That whole bit of I don't care, just come with me so I can save you. It's like, nah, fuck it.
Yeah,
dead.
I'm clearly leaning more towards Master, and I'd have shrunk all of them down. You know what I mean? But the episode before, you had him in, well, it wasn't an episode before, it was a few episodes back, sorry, The Devil's Chord. You had him in the 1960s.
Yeah.
You had a black man in the 1960s in UK running around having zany adventures, where the 1960s, for my parents, when they came to this country, was not that experience. They were spat on. They had signs drawn everywhere saying, and I'll use these words, saying wogs go home, monkeys, all the rest of it, right? They had all of that, signs where they would go to places saying, no blacks, no Irish, all the rest of it. that was in the 60s. So to me, that would have been a perfect episode to have had some of that stuff. It didn't have to be the how can I put it, the point of the episode.
No, but it should have been part of the episode.
It's the reality of traveling through time as a black doctor.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a show, and I've said this to a few people. There's a show called Timeless.
I love that show.
Which I loved. But in that show, there's literally the guy who pilots the time machine is a black guy, and they have to convince him to go back in time. And he actually says to another guy, he says, "There's no point in American history which is where it's good to be a black guy."
Yeah.
And they deal with that scenario pretty much every episode, and they deal with it in very creative ways. And there's even a couple of episodes where actually the other his two companions who are white, are on the back foot, and he's the one kind of in charge. So I kind of love the way they did that, and it introduced me to a character called Bassa Reeves, who there are some arguments as to whether or not he was the inspiration for the Lone Ranger. I don't know. Yeah. But I do know he was a real character.
Done a series about him recently, haven't they?
Yeah.
With was it the guy from Spooks? No.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Now I had no idea he existed as a character in history. No idea.
No.
Until I watched that episode. And then I went and looked him up and stuff like that. I was like, wow. So I'm not saying that you have to do these things just from a kind of horrible negative point of view. Do you know what I mean? There are positive ways you can do these things. But that episode, The Devil's Quartet, was a chance to kind of start to show the Doctor in a way where he's having to sort of go, well, hang on a minute, why isn't everyone just listening to me? Why can't I just walk in there and behave like this? And I felt like they threw that away, and then they decided, right, now we're going to do the racism episode.
Yeah. And this is the thing, right? Because it's something you've just mentioned there, kind of resonated a little bit, just because when Matt Smith was cast, obviously he was very young, and he has that line in his first episode where he's like, "Why aren't you listening to me? Do I have a face that no one listens to anymore?" Kind of thing. And it's that they kind of like addressed his youth, but as you say, in the 60s, where it would have been an issue, or more of an issue for a non-white person to be in London, in Liverpool, they don't address it. And then they kind of go to the far futures to do it, and they address the planet where these people are from as the home world, and everyone on the home world's been eaten because they're, also bad or whatever. And these people, they deserve to die, so they're going to go off and die, and it's a bit dark. Yeah. But it's not. It's that typical RTD of like, it's a brick in the face at the end of the episode, and it would have been much better, as you say, if it had been almost like a through line in the episode. And I kind of like almost expected it to happen, and I hadn't even thought of this again, white privilege. I hadn't even thought of the 60s angle of it really until you just said. But I was thinking, well, then they've got a Regency episode, so surely you could do it in a historical. And have that kind of.
We'll get onto that. But it's not even, it's not even the white privilege. It's just the life. It's just,
But it's the life I've lived.
It's the life. It's a life you haven't lived. Do you know what I mean? So, people that beat themselves up with kind of like, I didn't see it, and I've seen people online beat themselves up because they didn't see it first time around, and I'm like, yeah, but you are going to miss things. That's just life. You are going to miss things. Sue, I have conversations with Sue, and she tells me things, and it's from a sexism point of view. And I'm like, I completely did not see that. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make me a bad, but it just means that I didn't see it. What makes you exactly. a bad?
Sorry, go on. No, you go.
I was going to say, what makes it a problem is if when you do see it, you don't learn from it. That's when it becomes an issue, is if you see it and you don't learn from it. But I was trying to explain to someone that, when they say about those last 5 minutes, I know for the Doctor, I know what those last 5 minutes are like. My very first job, I dreamed of being in IT, And forgive me if people, I've probably said this on Geek Syndicate and people have already heard this story, so apologies. But I've got my rant up now. But I went and did a YTS scheme at IBM, which it's pretty, it's prestigious. I was 17, I was excited and whatever. And in my first week on the job, was called a black bastard to my face. I had a fight with someone in the office. He called me a black bastard to my face. My boss was, I mean, some of the stuff he used to say was, he wouldn't get away with it now. Let's just leave it there. Although I did, we did become really good friends because, again, I do believe there is a fine line between ignorance and prejudice, and you can work with ignorance.
Yes.
And I had to go. I remember going in that day and being called that to my face, and then going home and thinking, this ain't going to get any better, is it? So I get it.
Not being funny, but that's not even that long ago.
No, it's not. It's within our, but even the stuff from my parents, it's within my lifetime.
True. Yeah.
But also, I also am very hopeful. I'm also, I've been able to do amazing things and stuff like that. So I'm also very hopeful about where we are and where we're going and things like that. Yeah, there's dark things and probably dark days ahead as well. But just the fact that me and you are sitting here having this conversation about this stuff, there would have been a time me and you wouldn't have been able to sit. I was going to say sit in the same room, but actually we're not. But you get my drift.
We could. We'd be quite happy having this conversation normally.
Yeah, So I just feel that whilst this episode was good in some ways, I felt that the episode just should have been tackled. Well, I don't even think it should be tackled in an episode. I kind of feel if you're going to go down the road of casting a Black Doctor, I don't want to talk about Jodie's run because that's not necessarily my place. So, but I can speak about it. If you're going to go down the road of casting a Black Doctor, then you can't just stick him in certain eras and just go thumbs up, but that's okay. And
no, I feel like it should almost have been a through line of the series.
Yeah, and then that was what I was going to say. Yeah, sorry, that was what I was going to say. Is where I got a bit frustrated with the end of the episode is it's done really well, but what I wanted is, because what you got to ask yourself is this a black man traveling through time, or is this an alien traveling through time whose current incarnation has brown skin? Because there's differences between those. Maybe it's too much, but I kind of felt like if they'd gone down the route of him being an alien and him almost not necessarily getting it so much, what I would have loved was when he was kind of saying, look, I can save your lives and all the rest of it, and they just go no, and he just laughs and cries, screams, and gets into the TARDIS. What I wanted was for them to go back to Ruby's home. And for him to still be raging about it and going like, I can't believe, why wouldn't they listen to me? I can't believe this hasn't happened to me before. Why wouldn't they listen to me?
And then get it explained to him, essentially.
Yeah. And either the nan or the mum taking him aside, sitting him down and just going, look, love, and basically telling him the score.
I mean, you could almost like end it with, look, love.
Yeah. Whereas I saw online, like some people were saying, oh, you could see like Ruby got it before he did. And I'm like, and therein lies the problem.
Yeah. And I think you're right. And maybe that's my issue with it more than anything is it's not the Doctor's experience kind of thing. And it would have been stronger with him having it explained to him. And again, I'm coming back to Millie Gibson, 18 at the time they filmed this, but her performance, again, you could see she got it. You could see her being more upset by it, almost than him. Again, testament to Nshuti's performance, where he clearly, as the actor, knew what was going on and was just nailing it. But there was also that kind of like, as you say, that misunderstanding of what is the issue? Why don't they want to be saved? Sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it was almost like when he did, and there's the scene, and it's one of those things of it's weird, but it's kind of like when as soon as Spittle is involved, things seem more real.
Yeah.
Somehow, because it's almost like you wouldn't do that if you were just acting, kind of thing. But because you don't want to seem that ugly, for want of a different word, where that kind of happens to you because you're a human. But that scene where it comes out, he's clearly being himself, not the Doctor, and reacting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I hadn't thought of it, but again, yeah, I think if he'd have gone back and spoken to Ruby's mum, and literally, you could almost end it on, look, there are things you need to understand about, who you are now, or how you appear now.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's
yeah, sorry.
Sorry, you finish.
I had no follow up.
You sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do think there's an argument. There's an argument there, because it is that thing of is he an alien? Or is he a human black guy traveling through time? Because it's a different scenario. And like I said, I'm probably reading far too much into it. But I just feel like if you had just had a little bit with, because I kind of felt, and also as well, I felt it was a perfect setup for it. You've literally got two older black women that would have lived through all of these things. The amount of time my mum had to sit me down. And the thing is, I want to say every black person, so I'm not going to say that. But I know for me, I know for Dave, I know for some of our friends growing up, we all had to be given the talk. We all had to be sat down and kind of explained how the world works. We had to be explained of what happens when you get stopped by the police. We had to be explained about certain things, i.e. receipts, and all. We had to be explained all those things. We got to a particular age and you got explained that. Yeah. And I feel like if they'd had something like that, and I think your idea is great. She doesn't even have. We don't even have to see it. Just her, either the mum or the gran, putting her, and maybe the gran, because she's always been a bit of a comedy extra in it.
Yeah, so it would feel more legit almost.
Yeah. So maybe the gran calling him in and kind of being serious and putting her hand on him and says, look, dear, you need to know a few things. If you're gonna wear that face, you need to know a few things. And then it ending like that.
Yeah.
That for me would have sent it into stratosphere of getting it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And like I say, I'm not a writer. I don't have your life experiences and stuff. And I didn't, I wasn't. Amy picked up on it far quicker than I did. The whole kind of theme of the episode. But like you say, it's about acknowledging the ignorance, learning from the ignorance, and getting the message over in the right way. And I'm not being funny, but I think a lot of people still wouldn't have got it. And I think you needed something extra. And I know, we talked about Chris Chibnall, and there's the Rosa Parks episode, which was very much about stuff, and it was very in your face, and we were like, it was too in your face. But this was all possibly maybe for the audience it was intended for, a little bit not enough, and you needed that moment of acknowledgement and realization, because the Doctor doesn't think of himself as anything, or themselves as anything. They'd never really, when it was Jodie's run, they never really thought themselves as a woman. Yes, the writers did, clearly, but the character didn't. David Tennant never saw themselves or himself as being this ultimate nerd man kind of caricature that people would be all over, sort of thing. William Hartnell probably didn't think of himself as a grumpy old man. Because you don't realize you don't acknowledge what you are. You just have your experience of life, and if your life changes that often, you don't necessarily notice the change. To the point where you have like in Rose, Chris Eccleston's first episode, he's like, oh, these ears are like this now, sort of thing. Like, it's almost like he's not acknowledged even what their appearance is. So, and we haven't really seen Shooty do that either. Do you know what I mean? He's just been there being this amazing character, this amazing person, and being more settled in himself after, or themselves. Don't really know how to refer to the Doctor these days, if I'm honest. As being, just being more comfortable in themselves, but have they really noticed?
It's never really been, and I find that even that in itself is interesting, and I think some of that's to do with the writing. There may be not a certain level of we don't really want to go there, or don't quite, or more.
Or don't know how to go.
We don't know how to go there.
Yeah.
Because the awful line in the last, is it last?
Oh, with Mel.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, so you come in all colours now." No, not that.
Colours. Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, damn. You come in different colours now, and I was just like, "Okay, all right, so that's a thing."
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. Damn.
So that's what I mean. It's the inconsistency of it, I guess.
Yeah.
But like I said, I still think that what they were trying. I thought the last 15 minutes, I thought was really powerful. But again, I just feel it needed another scene, and I just feel that you could have done all that perfectly when he was in the past. And it was almost like I don't know, I felt it was almost like he didn't want to do that because it's in the 60s. It's almost like, oh no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to show the realities of it when we can take him off to a far-flung future where it's kind of set aside in its own little container. And now we've got the next 2 episodes. Is there 2 episodes left?
There's 2 episodes left. Obviously, we've got to talk about Rogue anyway in a minute.
Yeah, we're going to. But I don't feel like we'll go back to this now.
No, certainly not this season.
Dealt with it now.
Because we're now going to be in the finale basically.
Yeah.
So we're all like, ooh, big things, and Susan Twisty.
Yeah. So we've done our racism episode. It's bad. We've established it's bad for the Doctor sometimes. Job done.
Yeah. Well, we've established it's bad for the Doctor once, and it's, to be fair, it wasn't even bad for the Doctor. It was more bad for the racists.
Yeah, to be fair. Yeah.
Which I'm all for. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for the Doctor not suffering and the racist suffering, but there was more that could have been.
What I thought was weird, and no one's really touched on it, is so she says what she says, effectively, we don't want to go with you because you're black, effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, but I can save your lives, and screams, whatever, and then they go off. And she keeps looking back at him.
Mm.
And it's almost like a kind of like, I don't know if it's a glimmer of like, am I wrong? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I might need to watch it again, if I'm honest.
I don't understand. I don't think that was the reason. But I then think someone who's that racist, why are you looking back for?
I think
he's nothing to you. Do you know what I mean? He's nothing to you. It should just be a case of, no, you're black, not interested. Get in your voodoo machine, not interested. I'm gone. And they would just walk off and wouldn't even spare him a second look.
So that's an interesting point, right? Because I hadn't conned on to that, even like the looking back thing, because that scene I was distracted by because Amy kept saying, why have they got a Jungle Cruise boat in there? And it's literally the boat from it is a Jungle Cruise boat from Disney World, which is fucking hilarious on many levels.
Product
placement, but also product placement during a scene of blatant racism from Walt Disney, who was a blatant racist. But it's kind of like almost that kind of like, it was almost, was she behaving how she behaved in that scene because that's how her peers were? Because the worst kind of racism came from the other girl who's there with the brunette. And she was the one who was literally like, "Oh no, that's disgusting," sort of thing.
Yeah.
And was it kind of like almost like shit? Should I? Do I go with him or no? I'll go with my peers because they're my bubble. There was almost a bit of that to it. Like looking back from what you've just said now, I hadn't cottoned onto it before, but maybe that was the intent. I don't know. Given what Russell T Davies said in his interview, I don't think that was the intent. I think it was probably a lucky happenstance. But yeah, I wonder if it was the actress and director.
Yeah, to me, it just didn't track because she was disgusted by him.
Yeah.
So she shouldn't even be looking at him. Do you know what I mean? After she's kind of had their speech, they should just go. But it was almost like his pleas it was almost like part of it was almost getting through to her a little bit. But I don't know, some of that was her own self-preservation. Almost like,
Yeah, which, let's be faced, we've seen.
Yeah. What I would have found quite interesting is actually if she had said, which I get the reason why, I'm not asking them to change, but I would have almost been quite clever. I almost would have been interested to see if they had taken him up on his offer, he'd then taken somewhere and dumped them, and then we have that scene. And then we realise that they're racist and they basically just used him to save themselves. To effectively save their own skins.
Yeah.
Both work. I think the way they did it worked because effectively it was we were that much filled with hate
that we can't even be saved by you. So
yeah,
but
well, they believe they're not going to be. I think the whole concept is, how can you save me because you're inferior to me?
No, absolutely. But we as an audience know that they would have been.
Yeah.
Because it's the Doctor. But no, yeah, I get that. But yeah. I can't know what else to say because I just completely agree with you.
Yeah, I feel we're leaving it there.
I think the well has to run us dry on that one.
Yes, I mean it hasn't, but I'm going to leave it there because I feel otherwise.
Well, we're going to be having some late night chats about this at some point.
Yeah, I feel like I'll be that guy who'll be just walking up and down.
Thought bubble, the pre-thought bubble weekend.
Yeah, with a sandwich board, like come and talk to me about Dot and Bubble. I've got some things to say.
So what's that meme of it's the guy sat on the chair going, and he's got the I believe X, prove me wrong.
Yeah, I feel that will be me. I'm interested because Dave hasn't seen this yet, so I'm interested. To have a no, he's not seen it. So I know that we'll probably be having another conversation about this when Dave has watched it.
Yeah, I'll be interested to hear that. To be fair, because like I say, it's I always feel a little bit kind of like what's the word, out of place when we have these sorts of chats because I don't have the experience. It's like when you and Amy are talking and it's both the sexism and the racism stuff comes out and I'm like I just sit there and almost take it because I don't know because I'm going to do, and this is in massive air quotes, the enemy sort of thing, but and not in air quotes the problem because that's the demographic I am. But
but also that's an awful way to look at yourself because you're not the enemy. You're not the enemy and you're not the problem, and that's not how I see.
No, it's not how you see it. It's not how Amy sees it. It's
because I think the thing is, racism is a term, but also there's a term prejudice. And prejudice can happen across the board. I've plenty of times in my life I've been extremely prejudiced and had to really stop and take a good look at myself. Which is why I always use the term that there is a difference between ignorance
and
ignorance you could work with, and I've been ignorant many times in my life and I've had to stop and check myself. So and I don't think there's nothing wrong in being ignorant of something, but it's what you do when you are made aware of it. It's the choices you make after that. That's where you forms the sort of person you're going to be going forward. So,
Yeah, and Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. And I agree with that. And that's it's been my experience of life. There's times where I have been ignorant and I've been rudely ignorant at times, for want of a better word, and possibly seeming to be on the wrong side of the fence stuff. But when people explain it to you, it's like, no, I get it. I will try and be better. That, and like you say, that's being human.
Yeah, exactly.
So no, that's cool. Should we segue?
Yes.
So we'll segue now after 49 minutes.
This mammothly long episode.
Yeah.
I feel this episode is going to be a lot shorter talk.
I feel like there's less to get to. Which is episode 6, Rogue.
Rogue, yes.
So the Doctor and Ruby land in 1813. I'm not doing narrator voice. Hang on. The Doctor and Ruby land in 1813. You can't tell the difference, can you?
Not really, but
no.
I appreciate the effort.
The effort's there. I'm not an actor. Where guests at a Duchess's party are being murdered, and a mysterious bounty hunter called Rogue is about to change the Doctor's life forever. I feel like that's overselling it a bit, but there we go. So, Rogue.
So,
let me rephrase it. So, Captain Jack Part 2.
Yeah. So, after I got over my initial grumpiness of like, oh, so what? We're in. Is it Victorian England?
It's Regency. So, when is the Regency? Damn. It's not quite Victorian, but it's not long after. Let me just check. Hang on. Regency. Because I don't want to lie. England. Yeah, so basically, 1795, 1837. So, Victorian era.
Yeah, and still black.
Mm-hmm.
And everything's all good. And I had to get over it because they're obviously doing their kind of take on Bridgerton.
Yeah, I'll get onto that in a minute. Okay.
So I was kind of like, okay. But so I think from that perspective, it just felt a little bit weird after the previous episode where it literally was like, racism. And then it was like, we're in the past, no racism.
No racism here.
But the minute she was like, oh, my Bridget, and I was like, okay, cool. So it was just, and I feel like almost the fact that it started mid-scene where they were already there, it almost kind of took away that kind of bit of them landing and perhaps Ruby going, you sure you're okay to be in this timeline? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And him kind of maybe explaining, oh, no, this is a special bit I've picked. It's all good. Don't worry about it.
This is the one house in Regency.
Yeah. But I think
it's fine.
And I've not done the research. I know people existed in England and all the rest of it, so I'm not going to go there. But I think the fact that they started I think they were in the middle of a dance when the episode starts.
Yes, you have the cold open, obviously, with the murder.
Yeah.
And then
them kind of like dancing away and stuff. I think that kind of negated all of that by doing it. It just kind of threw them into it.
Yeah.
And to make a choice of whether or not I was going to spend the entire episode with my arms crossed or whether or not I was going to just uncross my arms and just go with it. So I uncrossed my arms and just went, it's Doctor Who with it. Do you know? And I just went with it.
So the way I kind of uncrossed my arms with that, because I'm with you, because I have an issue with back in the 7th Doctor series, you had the Curse of Fenric, where essentially the Doctor betrays Ace, and then suddenly they're best buddies again. But the way I kind of see it is stuff's happening in between episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's become a little bit more apparent in recent years, where they embrace that and they accept that, the Doctor Who comic strip in the Doctor Who magazines going on, the Titans comics are going on. So they kind of, they literally said, like, it's like the Doctor saying to Ruby a couple of episodes ago, he's like, oh, when is it for you now? Because time's passed between him seeing her. So I kind of uncrossed my arms because of that. reason. And I don't see episodes how they used to be, where it was almost like literally 1 week to the next, and it's direct continuation sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which was something Stephen Moffat introduced, kind of where there was gaps in time.
Yeah, and I definitely got a sense of that. But I mean, it was all right. It was quite fun. I thought I'm not really a fan. I mean, I've never watched Bridgerton. I've never seen Bridgerton. I don't feel like I needed to see it to have understood this episode. I'm not really a fan of this type of era anyway. But
tell me, Pride and Prejudice isn't your favourite book?
Shockingly, no. I mean, we had to do. I don't know if it's the same era, but I remember we had to do Far From the Madding Crowd in English at school. God,
I never did that, so I don't know. But it sounds terrible.
And Wuthering Heights as well. Jeez.
Oh yeah, no, that's the same period. Yeah, no.
Time I won't get back.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. I thought I really liked Rogue.
Jonathan Groff was
yeah,
fucking amazing in this.
Yeah, and I thought they had really good. The two of them had really good chemistry to the point of I'd forgotten that there was stuff going on with Ruby.
Yeah. No,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
she was good in it. Yeah, it's not that she wasn't good in it, but I felt like they stole the show.
Yeah.
The banter I thought was great. I thought the even the little kind of shared history bits was almost that kind of where they both lost people and stuff like that. I thought was done well. I thought the reveal of him being a Time Lord I thought was done really well. Yeah. I would have seen. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more. Actually, no. I'll say it for in a bit. You go next.
Right. So I was going to say with the whole kind of like the real Time Lord thing. I always love it when they start flashing previous Doctors' faces in front of you. But the fact that not only did they show David Tennant twice, but they also included Richard E. Grant in there and the Fugitive.
Yeah, which a few people picked up on. I don't know. I've heard of him before, but I don't know in what context.
So Richard E. Grant's history with Doctor Who is basically before the relaunch of Doctor Who was announced, Doctor Who was going to be a series of web animations, and Richard E. Grant was the Doctor. And they did one episode which was written by Paul Cornell, Scream of the Shalka. He's a very melancholic Doctor. He's basically the Time Lords have been wiped out. This may sound familiar. But they've retreated to the Matrix, and his companion is a robot of the Master.
Oh wow!
And there's a webcast. You can still see it online. It's fun. There's some people say it sounds like Richard E. Grant's phoning it in, but it's not. It's Richard E. Grant being deadpan. It's how he does it. It's how he was in With Nail and I. It's how he is in Posh Nosh, which I've just watched tonight because I love that series. It's basically a cookery show parody. It's amazing. Look it up on YouTube. But to include him, so he was that Doctor, but also in the. In fact, it was before that. Actually, there was a comic relief episode called Curse of Fatal Death, which was. Yeah, it was before. It was like 2001, 2002. It was when I was in uni, and it was written by Stephen Moffat, and the main Doctor in it was Rowan Atkinson, who was the eighth or ninth Doctor. Then you had he wound up in the episode. He regenerated several times because of the course of the story. One of them was
didn't he regenerate into Joanna Lumley?
Yeah, that was the final one. So basically, it went like Richard E. Grant. It went Rowan Atkinson, I think Hugh Bonneville, Richard E. Grant, Hugh Grant, Joanna Lumley. Basically, and she was the 13th Doctor, and the idea was that in your final life, you change sex, basically. So he was Joanna Lumley, and he had the Dalek bumps, and it's funny. And then the Doctor and the Master go off and essentially, I don't know, whatever they do together. But that was the fun of it. So he's essentially played two Doctors. He's played the Shalka Doctor and the Curse of Fatal Death, handsome-ish Doctor. So to see him in there was like, oh, what they're saying now, because they included Joe Martin's fugitive doctor,
Yeah.
which was good, and I kind of bought that because you know what, those memories are unlocked. It's in the Doctor's mind after Flux. They included the
Yeah.
War Doctor, and to me that was significant because it's like, you know, this Doctor accepts all of himself or of themselves. So it's right that they're there. But to have Richard E. Grant in there, it's like kind of like, is that just Russell messing with us, like the whole Mavity thing that's not been addressed since the David Tennant specials? And that's irritating me. But yeah, just having that in there, and I love those scenes where you have those flashbacks, and it does harken back to like the Brain and Morbius where they had this mental battle, and Tom Baker's there going, and you can't beat me, and Morbius is like, of course I can, I'm thousands of years old, and it goes back and it's like John Pertwee, Patrick Troughton, and William Hartnell, and then basically a load of the crew with other faces, and the idea is they're previous Doctors, sort of thing. So that idea has been around for a while, but just bringing Richard E. Grant in, I'm happy with it. I don't know how it fits in because I can't rationalize it, but I love it. So, because I like Richard E. Grant anyway, I think he's a fantastic actor. So, because he was the Great Intelligence in the Snowmen with where we first met Clara. The Clara who should have been the companion.
Oh yes, yeah.
So,
Victorian Clara.
Victorian Clara, who still best Clara.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved that because it was kind of like, well, I loved it and hated it because this part was like, oh, that's amazing, and then it's like, but how does it fit? Because I'm a massive nerd and I need to make it fit. But yeah, I liked all that. I thought both Jonathan Groff and Ncuti, their chemistry was great. I thought they performed well and they bounced off each other well in this episode. My main issue, I've got two main issues with this episode, and we'll get into. I'm going to say them quickly just so we get them out of the way and we can just start wrapping up because we're probably not too far into this because this was a very bog standard episode, let's face it.
Yeah.
So there's less to talk about. But my two issues with this was, and one's half an issue. So the cosplaying aliens I quite liked, and then being birds and birds being flamboyant and look at my tail and stuff fits. But I hate aliens who are basically humanoid Earth animals. I hate Doom. I hate the cat nuns because it's lazy. It's just like, what can we do to make an alien? Oh, it's a rhino. I hate it. Always have, always will. It's lazy, disgusting. But it kind of like the concept of them being, but you know, avians worked, whatever.
Yeah.
So my other issue with it is, and we talked about this more in the specials stuff, but I'm genuinely finding this is very much Russell T Davies doing the greatest hits of Doctor Who. So in this one, it's let's do Captain Jack again, but this time he doesn't get his penis out behind the scenes every episode and annoy all the other cast, as was the case with John Barrowman. You can edit that out, but that's what happened. So having like a more, you know, having that kind of character back, I think is good. I feel like Jonathan Groff, actually, I like his performance, and I feel like he has possibly a depth of performance ability that maybe John Barrowman didn't. But I bought his character more than I ever did Captain Jack. That makes sense. And I've seen people moaning about, you know, the Doctor's crying every episode, and yeah, we know you could turn it on, Ncuti, but you don't have to do it. It's like, but I just feel like this is a more fear and emotionally open Doctor than we've seen because of that healing process we saw.
Yeah.
You know, and there's nothing wrong with it. What's wrong with showing emotions? I don't do it because I'm a big manly man. But do you know what I mean? It's like, that's not life these days. You know, people should be showing their emotions. We know it's not healthy to hide them.
But also as well, like, he genuinely feels like a completely new Doctor.
Yes.
He actually feels like he's regenerated into a different person. I'm not saying just because he's now black, but he's regenerated into a different
No,
person, because to a
completely.
certain extent, some of the previous ones have tried to kind of done. People have got, oh yeah, he's just doing a bit of Matt Smith, isn't he? Or he's just doing a bit of
Yeah.
David Tennant, isn't he? Or she's basically doing a bit of Matt Smith or whatever. Whereas she's performance feels very unique to him.
Yes.
It
Yeah,
feels
I
like
completely
his
agree with that.
version of the Doctor. So from that perspective, he feels like a completely different character, as he should, because he's regenerated.
Yeah, and
So
I
I
feel like
like that.
this is the strength of the writing as well, I think, because generally it's kind of like you get a new Doctor and you don't know who's going to be the Doctor, but you've written those scripts beforehand. So there's always that element of, like, when Matt Smith came in, there's a bit of kind of like, we'll do him a bit David Tennant-y initially. You know, when Peter Capaldi comes in, there's that kind of like being a bit out, you know, a bit outside of society, like Matt Smith was, because you don't know how you're going to perform him. When Jodie came in, it was like, oh, she's worked with David Tennant, we'll do David Tennant but a girl, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because, you know, lazy writing. But this time, yes, you're right, it feels like a new person. And that was set up as well, because it was very much in the regeneration episode. It was like, you know, you'll be fine because I'm fine. And
Yeah.
all that angst, all that history is not gone, but it's accepted. And it's like, I'm now who I am. This is me now. Let's get on with life. And it's a new character. And I like that.
Yeah, and I'm of the same, definitely. And I think, you know, again, for people who had issues with him falling for Rogue as well, it was kind of like, but again, it's that thing, how I looked at it was like, he is a different Doctor. He's a really, really different reincarnation.
Yeah.
Regeneration of the Doctor. So this regeneration, he's attracted to a bloke.
So for me, it's not even about being attracted to a bloke, right? It's about the more kind of like, oh, would he fall in love that quickly? But then you look back to the girl in the fireplace, you know, where the Doctor basically fell in love with Madame de Pompadour very quickly. And yes, okay, he had that kind of like fanish knowledge of the person, but still, the point of the episode was he met this person who was essentially going to be the perfect companion for him, and he missed the window.
Yeah.
And that the point of the episode was he would have been with her and loved her, you know. So I don't get that. And like you say, this Doctor is more emotional. He is more open to experiences. And
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
You meet someone who is, you know, we all do it. You know, you find some people, you immediately get a crush on them, you know, and you find them fascinating. You find them magnificent, you know, and it may not be funny, might not be love, doesn't have to be. Sometimes it can be just a crush.
Yeah,
you know?
infatuation.
It's just the moment. Yeah, it's infatuation. It's the moment, and that's the thing that annoys me. So I had no problem with it because we've all done it. You know, I did it with She-Ra when I was a kid. You know, I was very young. It happened. I was infatuated with her. But it happens in life. It happens when you're an adult. You know, you get not obsessed, but you get enthralled by someone. And that's the thing. And it might just be that. It might be a one night encounter. It might be you meet them again and other things happen. It might be something more. It might be something less. It's part of the experience of life. I nearly said the human experience then, but the Doctor's not human, but it is. It's a life experience. And the fact that someone who is not human finds that when they haven't done before necessarily, and again, not true, Madame de Pompadour, also in the Romans, William Hartnell nearly settles down on Earth in Rome with a woman he met. So it's not a new thing. You know, none of that annoyed me and none of that irritated me and none of that kind of you know, and as I say, I've seen people moaning about the emotional side of the Doctor, and it's like, let him be emotional. It's different. He's a different person.
And I think that's what they said. It's different. It's trying to bring something different to it, and that isn't a bad thing.
No.
And you know, and again, it's that thing of, especially in this day and age where there is so much genre stuff to consume, that if it really isn't working,
watch something else.
Go and watch something else. That's what I would do now. And I didn't necessarily have that same luxury when I was a kid, but I have that luxury now. If it's really not working for me, I'll just go and watch something else. And, you know, I've seen a few people say it where they've kind of said now, like, you know, Doctor Who isn't aimed at them or whatever now. And maybe that is the case. And sometimes that is the case with things. Sometimes you know, tastes change. Mm-hmm. Sometimes what worked for you back in the day doesn't work now. And that's okay. That's okay. You know,
that's life.
That's life, you know. One of the things I really liked, actually, it was only one line he dropped, but it was just, my thing is, I still want to see that kind of version of Doctor Who you don't mess with. And obviously, this version, you don't necessarily, I haven't really seen as much of that.
We haven't had a lot of that yet, if any.
But I just liked the bit where, I know it then sort of killed it a little bit, but where he thought Ruby was dead.
Yeah.
And it sort of flashed back to kind of like the mum and her sort of saying, you know, you'll look after her. And he was like, I promise she'll be okay. And I did think, well, you haven't really got a good track record. I don't know if you could be making them sort of promises, mate. I know you are a new doctor, but you're still the doctor.
Yeah, you're still taking people basically on the most dangerous adventures ever.
Yeah. I feel like somewhere on YouTube, someone's going to do some sort of like clip where they're going to have that scene and he's going to go, I'll take good care. And it'll flash back to all the companions that have like been killed or lost or something. But I really liked when he sort of asked Rogue, like, what's the lifespan of, I can't remember what the aliens are called now. And he said 600 years. He was like, good. That's a nice long time to suffer, or something like that.
Yeah, it was almost like that family of blood kind of moment.
Yeah, I was like, here we go. And then he came in and started dropping jokes. And I was a bit, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I actually did think for a second, I don't know why, but I did think for a second she was dead.
So, no, I get it. And that's honestly testament to the direction and the acting and the writing, because obviously we know she's not, because we know she's still the companion in season 2.
Yeah, there is.
But when you have those moments of like, oh, and I kind of like liken it to, so I obviously, like, back in the 90s and 2000s, I read a lot of Star Wars novels, and a lot of them were obviously set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi or whatever. But when they were well written, you still felt the threat, and you felt the danger. And that's what and it's the same, you know, it's the same with Doctor Who media. When I listen to Big Finish audios, I still feel the threat to the Doctor and the companions, even though I know they survive because they have to be in the next story that's set afterwards. Yeah. But when things are done well, you do get that moment of, oh, and I felt the same with Boom. I'll be honest. You know, when she got taken out, I was like, for a moment, I was like, oh shit. But I obviously knew she was back because she was there for the whole season. But there was that time it took me out. And those moments when they hit you, I think that shows when everything's coming together in the right way. The acting, the directing, the writing, the music, everything's just hitting. And that's testament to the show when that happens. So yeah, I think that's a good thing. What did you make of like the earrings factor? Just not quite Sonic earrings, but they were kind of in that vein of these are going to get you out of trouble.
Oh yeah, because
that's how she fought her off, right?
Yeah, because I kind of missed it a little bit, because I think when she was saying, there's a bit when they were dancing, it's like, how do I know the moves? And he's like, oh, and then he sort of explained it, and I think it went over my head a little bit. I wasn't really paying attention, but obviously that was quite important, because then that's what she uses later. And I was like, yeah, okay, so it's magic then, yeah. Yeah. I just went with it. I didn't really. By that time, I was like, okay.
So I was the same, except because I'm a dick and a massive nerd. I was like, so how come we didn't hand them out to all the companions so they can just deceive themselves at various
Well, to be fair, maybe it's a Disney incarnation of like the Doctor's coat. Yeah, maybe I need to take better care
He's
of my
embedded him.
panties.
He's
Yeah,
got
it's like
he's met Mel again. He's like, oh, you survived. Other people didn't.
yeah,
And do you know what? I need to do something about this.
I need to start putting some effort in rather than just dumping them on planets and hoping they can fend for themselves.
Yeah, just these humans. They'll work it through.
Yeah, but also I was hoping. Well, it would have been just as easy to just have said that because of where she lived, she could take care of herself.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It would have, because the fight scene it wasn't exactly Matrix. Do you know what I mean? So it would have been quite easy to have it would have been just as easy just to have said that she could take care of herself because she's hard as nails, and it still would have worked. But you know,
because I'm not being funny, she drinks in the same pub as Jackie, Rose's mum.
Does she?
Yeah, they mentioned the same pub.
Oh, okay.
I saw that online, to be fair. That's not being a massive nerd. I saw that online. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a specific pub, and they both mentioned it. So, if Jackie's mum hangs out there, it's probably rough. So she can handle herself.
Yeah. But it didn't bother me. I just rolled with it.
Yeah, no, I say it didn't bother me, and I quite liked it because it gave the explanation of how she wasn't dead, and I quite liked the whole no, it's actually me, dude. What's going on? And then the acceptance of, do you know what? We need to take these people out. Just let me go.
Yeah,
I like that. I like that self-sacrifice stuff, though, and the fact that he didn't realize it as well. I think some doctors would have maybe cottoned on to it. But the fact that he was just so caught up in the grief and the moment, and it's like it can't be because it's clearly the and that was the other thing. It was like she was there in human form when all the others were in their bird forms. It's like, but yeah, no, I say I liked it, and I for a moment I was kind of like you. I was like, is she not, or is she? Is that the bird thing, but Ruby's not dead, sort of thing? Like, I wasn't sure where they were going with. I knew Ruby wasn't dead deep inside, but it was that kind of like, is that the bird creature pretending to be Ruby, or is that Ruby pretending to be the bird creature pretending to be Ruby?
Because I wasn't sure for a second, and maybe that was going to roll into. Because I thought even if she died, they can always go back in time and then reverse it, which is what I thought they might do. But I wasn't sure for a second when she came out whether or not it was going to turn out to be like he was going to save her. But then she was actually, we'd find out maybe in the last episode or whatever that actually she is still one of them and Ruby actually had died.
Yeah, so it was like they did with Amy, didn't they?
Yeah.
With the
clone,
doppelgangers. Yeah, it was like the doppelganger things where they went back to her, and there was like the mine or whatever run by the gangers, who were like this goo stuff but made human. But yeah, no, I enjoyed this episode, but as you say, it was a bit more run of the mill, but it was a good run of the mill. It was a run of the mill that Doctor Who almost should be in some ways. Because I feel Doctor Who, it's almost like sometimes, and this happened a lot with the Stephen Moffat run, which, as we know, is my favourite. It gets up its own bum.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes actually you just need to concentrate on having an adventure in space and time.
Sometimes you just need to be running away from aliens.
You just need to have aliens or historical situations or whatever and have an adventure.
Yeah.
It's literally that. It's that initial tagline of an adventure in space and time. And that's what it should be. And this to me felt like one of those episodes where that was the case. And I enjoyed it much more because of it, because it didn't feel tied into overall arcs. It didn't feel too preachy. It didn't feel up itself. It just felt like a story with characters who interacted in the right ways. Nothing felt forced in it. And, Indira Varna, who was the Duchess, and the main bird creature, again, amazing in it.
Yeah.
the whole the one point I felt was a little bit forced maybe was the fact that like the young girl who was trying to get off with the Baron or whatever, even when he was the bird creature and it turns out she was one as well, it's like that bit kind of felt a bit kind of like, oh, they've done that just to make a bit of a shock factor and then have the Ruby conflict and Ruby fight, because it had been shown throughout the episode that they knew who each other were. You know, the aliens, the Chundar, was it Chundari? Whatever. But they knew each other. So that kind of reveal of the young girl who was trying to get off with the Baron or whatever, being rejected and befriending Ruby and stuff, that felt a little bit forced because she hadn't. It would have been all right if she'd met Ruby and been intrigued by her beforehand, and it was a bit of a play act, but she hadn't until that scene.
Yeah.
So it kind of felt a little bit kind of like that reveal was a bit forced. And that was my only real downside with the episode, other than the aliens being Earth animals stuff and the repetition of previous themes. But yeah, I just thought this was a good, solid, standard historical aliens involved in the past episode, and it was nice to have that sort of thing.
Yeah, agreed.
Cool. Shall we round up, because we've been
yes
for far longer than I feel like I should have kept.
We've been here for a while.
So where can we be found?
We can be found all over the internet, on Facebook, on Instagram, on X. Just search Geek Syndicate and you'll find us. I was going to do all the links and stuff, but links will be in the show notes anyway, people. And if you want to support the show, you can do via Patreon, or you can buy us a virtual coffee at ko-fi.com.
Lovely stuff. So that was for. I don't even know what the next episode's called. I didn't look it up, so I can't do called, next time.
I think it's called The Legend of.
Oh, is it The Legend of Ruby Sunday?
Yeah.
Is that next week? I thought that was phenomenal. Cool. So we'll join you anyway next time for next week's episode, which is quite probably The Legend of Ruby Sunday. We're back in unit territory. Mel's back. Rose is back. Stuff will happen. Thanks for listening to us. Hope we haven't rambled too much. I really enjoyed this chat. I thought it was more insightful than possibly a lot of chats about these stories. I'll be honest. So thanks for joining us. We will see you next time.
Bye all.
Take care.